Okay, what's going on, everybody? Morgan J. Ingram here with Muffins with Morgan. If you've been here before, we come here on Fridays and we unpack some great topics, great conversations. If you heard last time, we were here with Amber. We were talking about imposter syndrome, and now we're talking about AI. So, completely different topics, but, we like to go back and forth. So for everyone tuning in, welcome to the show. Let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm tuning in from Atlanta. Megan's tuning in from Boston, and let us know what's going on. And then also, when you tell us where you're from, we're going to have just a fun question we're going to ask here. So the question for today's show is, what is your favorite road trip snack? So answer that in the chat for us. What is your favorite road trip snack? Megan, we're going to ask you the same question.
Yeah, I mean, Chex Mix is always pretty solid of all varieties. Anything you got. Yeah. I also, like, years ago, I drove across Kansas and discovered like, they're not called corn chips, they're like corn kernels. And they're so good. But it's been decades since I've had that.
Okay. When's the last time you taken a road trip? That's the real question.
I took a road trip. Well, New England, it's like, I don't know if it counts, because in New England, all the states are so small. So like, we'll regularly, drive up to Maine, drive up to Vermont. But I feel like it's like one state. Let's just call New England one state. No, if it only takes 2 hours to drive across 3 states, it doesn't really count.
Fair. My favorite one is the someone said peanuts, but I'm actually taking it to the next level. The pretzel, they're like pretzel bits with the peanut butter in the middle.
Oh, that's a good answer.
They're just, I don't know how to put it. Like, LinkedIn might come after me, but like, it's just too addicting. Like, I'll have the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'll start eating, and then like it's halfway, and I'm like, this is too dangerous. Like, I can't do this.
The last company I worked for, they used to have them in the kitchen, like in a big jar, and yeah, multiple trips a day. It was not a good time.
No, and then I get it from Costco, and y'all know how Costco rolls. So they got it like this big, and I'm over there just like, yeah, like whatever. And I'm like, yeah, this is bad. I gotta stop.
That's a good pick.
All right, y'all. So we'll see what a couple other people have here. Chips, Omar, you gotta tell us a little bit more. Like, are you eating like Fritos, Lay's? Like, what's going on there? We gotta dive into that. And then we have a couple places in the house. We have Columbia, New York. Shout out to Atlanta. That's where I'm at. Mississippi. We got a couple.
I love Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville.
So oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time. So shout out to everybody here. The topic of today is going to be around mastering the art of content creation with AI. And there's no better person to talk about this than Megan, who is at a company that is doing AI. So it makes a ton of sense. And so, Megan, if you quickly want to introduce yourself, we'll dive into the questions, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. Yeah. So, hey, everybody, I'm Megan. I run marketing for Jasper, which is basically an AI co-pilot for marketers. So I'm marketing to marketers, really kind of feel their pain very much. And the idea is, Jasper can help you accelerate everything from an individual piece of content to a full end-to-end product launch campaign. And what's unique about it is it trains on your company's brand voice, so that your entire messaging, your entire team from intern to executive can be aligned on like a tone that you've defined. So that's Jasper. It's been a wild year. This stuff is changing so fast, and we're innovating so fast. It's been really fun to be part of it.
Awesome. And so across the board, looks like you already have some people who are fired up. So Diego said, wow, from Jasper. And then we have another comment in here. Use Jasper, and it was amazing. So already some people already showing some love. And quickly, as we go into the show, I'm going to ask Megan some questions, but that doesn't mean that you all can't ask questions. So in the chat, if you want to know anything around Jasper, AI, content creation, marketing, right? That's why we're here. I'm here to unpack the information, but you all can join in the conversation. And so without any further ado, y'all know how I do it. Like, we got the We got the soundboard. We're ready for the questions. But the first question I think is the most important one because I think people get confused on this because I think it's one of those. It is a buzzword for a lot of people. AI.
Yeah.
What does AI actually mean?
Yeah, so AI is a really broad category, and what you're hearing about most often today is sort of a sub portion of that called generative AI. And generative AI basically takes a prompt or input from a human and then is able to generate something entirely new out of that, whether that is a piece of art or a paragraph or a slide presentation or a movie. The list goes on and on. But that's really the act. And how it works is it starts with sort of a language model that will consume just an enormous amount of content from the internet. Usually that's a
Mm,
bad idea,
yeah.
but in this case, it makes it really powerful and very able to understand not just words, but the natural way that people speak. And so that's what enables it to then produce natural sounding language based on the prompts that you give it.
So you mentioned this a couple times. Prompts. I think everyone probably listening in is deciding or trying to figure out how do you write great prompts. And I want to lead with this because I think most people think that AI is a genie, and I think that is the wrong way to think about it. Like especially when I train sales teams, they're like, "Oh, I can just go in ChatGPT and say write me a good cold email," and I'm like, "No, you can't actually do that because it doesn't it doesn't know what a good cold email is." So
Yeah.
how should people be thinking about the right inputs and prompts, and what are you learning as you're diving into these tools?
Yeah, definitely. So it's kind of 2 points I would make here. One on prompts, I think the more you can give, the better at this stage. So this is why you see a lot of people say, act as an accountant and write a summary of, best accounting practices for
Mm.
this audience, right? Like the more detailed you can give, both whether you're creating art or writing is good. That being said, I do think that AI is going to get smarter and smarter in the same way that search has, where over time you won't need to be like a prompt expert or a prompt engineer to do this well. It will kind of like adapt to what you've asked it before and learn from that. So I think that's point one. It's just give as much as you can to inform the outputs, and put as much of yourself into it as you can because that will make better outputs. The second piece that I would say, though, is I'd be very careful about relying on AI to produce like the totality of what you need. So it's very much meant to be like a tool in the hands of creators, not a replacement for them. It will write a beautiful sentence, but the substance underneath that sentence may not be there. You need to bring the substance, the perspective, the original research, the ideas. Like when I use AI, I use it as a complement to my own writing, where like I'll sit down and write a piece and maybe I get stuck in a transition and I'll use AI there, but it's my original ideas, it's my my research and substance behind it, and that's really necessary. If you don't bring that, if you're just putting your content on autopilot, you're going to get pretty shallow content. Does that make sense?
That makes a ton of sense. I think one thing that to run it back and clarify, and then I have a follow up question, and some people in the audience have questions that we're going to get to you,
Yeah.
is AI will get you about 80% there. It'll give you a foundation, but you have to be able to build from there, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, it'll give you like the foundation of the house, but it will not build the entire house. Is what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think another good parallel that I like to bring up is it's like the digital camera for photographers, right?
Yeah.
It can take a picture on its own, but that picture doesn't have any perspective or ideas behind it. It literally is just the mechanics of a picture, which is why a lot of times you get kind of copy or output that's kind of robotic. Um, you need the photographer needs to be there to come up with the idea for the
Mm.
shot, to figure out what it is they're trying to capture or convey with that image. Same goes for AI. You really need the marketer or the copywriter to know what they're trying to say and then use AI to get there more quickly. Or my favorite use case, start with something that is entirely human made and then use AI to repackage that into a bunch of different formats, and then you'll know that the quality and consistency will be there.
I love that. And another thing that you had talked about here is the giving it as much as you can. Can you talk about maybe the limitations with that? Obviously, there's a lot of talk been around ethics within AI, which I feel like that's important to talk about. But also, it's also because it's changing all the time. It's hard to have the rules and the guidelines. I know that Italy's had certain conversations around this. I know even enterprise companies have completely banned ChatGPT and AI. So speak on when you're saying give as much as you can. Is there limitations to that? Should people be careful not putting in, hey, we made this much this year? Like maybe you should be putting that information in there. So clarify on that one.
Yeah. Oh man. So you just crossed like three big topics that I'm very super excited about. All right. So within that, there's security and privacy. There's bias and underrepresentation. And then there's accuracy of the content that you get out. If I can, I'll take each of those. They're all interrelated and they're all kind of caused by similar
Yep.
things, but I think that they're all like distinct. So let's talk about security first. So, let's say you're using you're using ChatGPT, you're using the free version. You haven't kind of like looked into any security settings there. It's important to know that if you're using that, like what you give to that model is going to go to then retrain the model, right?
Mhm.
That's how that works. So if you do not want to put any like proprietary information in there about your company or anything like that, because that then feeds into the model. Tools like Jasper exist for business use cases where there's more security, SOC 2 compliance, a thick wall between what you put into your query and the training models that are sort of larger and exist outside your walls. So you want to make sure you have a perspective on, especially if you're using this for a company, but even if you're using it for personal use, like you want to at least understand how security works for the tools that you're using. Second point, bias and misrepresentation in AI. So the way AI works is, as I said, it consumes an enormous amount of the internet. In that consumption, it is pulling in the same biases that we see every day on the internet, right? It is pulling in underrepresentation of some folks in different fields. It is pulling in straight up racism in places.
Mhm.
And, most of the models out there have filters in place to try to prevent that into getting into your outputs. But it is still really important that you have a perspective, that you're building diverse teams, frankly, that you understand that bias exists and can exist in some of the outputs that you have and that you're watching for it, right? The problem with it is it's like, it's not an easy thing to like turn off. It's not,
Mhm.
it's a major flaw in the system, but it is not it's not like an acute bug that you can find and
Right.
kind of squash. And so that really, again, underscores the importance of people in this equation to be that judgment, to be that sort of have those sense of ethics in what the output is going to be. Third point, and I'll stop talking because I know this was a big chunk.
No,
Uh,
you're good. I mean, this is important. This is an important part.
Yeah, and I think, I would do two, like, I am a marketing leader. I would do two things. Number one, I would invest in AI literacy so that your team understands the limitations of AI. And two, I would build diverse and representative teams, and make sure that you have an understanding of, the way that the writing that you have is portraying your audience, and the people that are consuming your content. Okay, so the third thing is inaccuracies. AI writes incredibly confidently. I'm
It is
stealing.
it is the most confident. Put it if y'all have used ChatGPT before. Put a one in the chat if you think like AI is a little bit too confident. You're like, yo, relax. Like,
Yeah,
let
it's
us
like
know.
the ego on this robot is like, you know, uh, and so it's like, it's convincing, right? Like I've asked it things before and it'll like lay down things and present them as facts, include like percentage points and things like that, that feel so accurate because they're so precise. and then you'll go look up that study and you'll realize that that study doesn't exist.
Yep.
Right. So that, those are minimizing over time. So a lot of the AI models have, smaller models that are from like more confined data sets, have less what are called hallucinations. But even the bigger models are getting better at that over time. But we're still in an era where you need to watch out for that. And I think like this becomes really important when AI starts seeping into like search engines. When it's not just about helping us convey our ideas faster, but it's also about helping us consume content and understand topics. You got to fact check. You got to look at other sources. This is not as simple as opening up an encyclopedia and getting an answer, right?
Yep.
So I would just underscore that too. All three of these things to me means people need to be in the loop, right? AI literacy has got to be high. You've got to be asking the questions about security, bias, and accuracy. You have to have humans in the decision-making seats, and they have to have critical judgment of all this stuff.
I think those are excellent answers. And I think it's important to understand those foundations, because before you go off and start doing these inputs and believing that is true, you have to know those three things you just broke down. Otherwise, it's just not going to work out for you.
Yeah.
So that's why we're going to go to a couple questions in the audience. Thanks for y'all being patient. So we're going to go to Diego. I think this is a very, very timely question. I have friends that are copywriters and they think the same thing. So he's saying, hey, colleagues are freaking out. What do you have to say to us? I use AI for proofreading. English is not my native language, but I found the copy robotic.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'll sound a little bit like I'm beating the same drum again and again here, but AI is best as a tool for copywriters, not a replacement. It doesn't think creatively on its own. It needs that copywriter to bring the creativity. And then what AI can do is accelerate that process, and then also take, copywriters. It's a really creative job, but it's also like a high volume and kind of thankless job at points, right? So it's like you pour your soul into some ad copy, and then the next question is, cool, can you make 25 variants of that same idea? Right. And then you're just like, oh God, that's a lift, right? So I would, for copywriters, still like pour your soul into that first idea, and then use AI to give you variants, use AI to repackage that into different formats, use it in the places that feel like the heavy lift, and not in the places that A, bring you joy, and B, require your unique creativity and skill. And so I'll say to people who hire copywriters that, again, this is not a one-for-one replacement. If you just insert AI, you're not going to get the same, no matter how beautifully it can write, you're not going to get the same quality output, because it takes that context and perspective and understanding of the client that, AI is not going to have. So, I would say don't freak out. Instead, get curious, right? I find that the response here is people go on, either end of a spectrum. They either are terrified of this and they want it to go away, and so they don't even touch it, or they're like so emphatic about it and they think it can, replace everything and solve everything, and they're wrong,
Right.
right? Be in the middle, find your practical use for it, and then you can help inform the people around you about, where AI is additive and where it's not.
Diego, let us know if that answer was helpful. We'll go on to the next question, but we're going to shout out somebody because you're shouting yourself out. So, yes, it's great for you to be here as well. So we're going to show you some love with the air horns. Let's go over to this question, which is from Anna here. Is there a certain way to ask or a pattern to follow to be able to give AI what you need to do for you?
People have different takes on this. It's become very popular to do the kind of preamble of act like a, college counselor and give me advice on what to do with my career. Like the act like a has become like a common prefix that people use. I don't know that that's I'm not going to give that same advice. I would say like just experiment with what works, try different ways of asking the same question and figure out what gives you the best answer. I don't think it's formulaic in that way. I also think, I mean, one of the things that's really cool about AI, whether you're on ChatGPT or Perplexity or Jasper or any of these tools, is the conversational nature of
Mhm.
it. So you can ask it for something, it can give you an output, and you're well within your rights to then say, that's not good enough, try again.
Mm.
Or, you know, that's that's interesting, but I want something that has more humor in it, right? And give those critiques on the other side of the output to refine it further.
On a lesson note, if that helps answer your question, you need to dive deeper. We're going to go into some more questions that we have here, which are all good. We're going to go into this, which is the best platform for generating B2B marketing and sales related content as what basically what you would suggest is. I think this is what this question is asking here.
I am so sorry. This is like a perfect plant
You
for
gotta be.
me. Like,
I mean, the question is here, so I'm just like,
Jasper, you gotta get on Jasper. Look, I think that I will give the very quick pitch for there are a ton of AI tools out there right now. Jasper's been around since 2021, like, long before many of them, and was always really positioned for marketers and sales teams. We built kind of our approach and our model by consuming a lot of like best practice marketing materials, right? Like high quality ranking blog posts and great approaches to like AIDA for sales emails. And so our whole nature is marketing and sales. And then you add in the idea of being able to train on a company's brand voice so that you don't destroy that brand that you've worked so hard to build, and being able to build multi-channel campaigns rather than just like one-off pieces here and there. That to me, makes me say that's the Jasper is sort of your best option there. There are other tools in the spaces that, I think do incredible things for different verticals, but I'm sure it's tough to take it from me on the inside, but I really do think it's the best option.
all right, and we're gonna go into this question, and then we're gonna transition in like the content creation piece here. But the question here is, being that AI is here to stay, do you think companies should be more open to allowing ChatGPT in their business? Is basically what this is talking about. He's also saying, I'm gonna go out and look at this. He's saying AI is just gonna and making sure that AI doesn't wreak havoc over their business if they don't take advantage of ChatGPT. What is your take from a company being allowed to have ChatGPT in their business rather than not having in their business?
Yeah, no, I think companies need to define their standards for things like security and proper usage of AI first as a first step, and then go find the tools that meet those standards, right? So, you know, ChatGPT is sort of one tool, one interface into OpenAI, which is actually only one model, right? There's a ton of different models that are out there, Anthropic, OpenAI, uh, and they're kind of proliferating as well. Google's got its own model. And so the first thing you have to do is figure out, you know, what is it that my company needs? I need security of my data and my customers' data. I need a language model or a tool that can learn my style guide and my brand voice. I need something that can be collaborative, that has review processes in it. Whatever those criteria are, define that first, and then go ask all those tools which of that they deliver on. So I think that's a decision that each company needs to make. I think underneath your question, I answer that way because you mentioned ChatGPT, and they fall in different spots in
Hmm.
that spectrum. But AI in general, I think there is a way. I think that companies should be integrating AI into their practices, and that if they don't, it will be an inhibitor. But you got to find the right tool and the right way to do so.
So speaking of all that, let's go into the content creation side. Copywriting was mentioned. Let's say, okay, I'm starting off as a content creator. obviously you don't want to just be like, write me a LinkedIn post, right? That's not where you want to start. What are like 3 ways that you would
Yeah.
guide someone to leverage AI to be better at the content creation process?
Yeah, I would think about like where is there the most friction in your flow of work when you're creating content, right? And that's going to vary for different people, right? For a sales rep, it may be that they have to write scores and scores of emails every day, and it takes them a while to figure out how to personalize that to each person. For a ad copywriter, it may mean that they have huge variations. For a product marketer, it may mean that they have to organize a multi-channel campaign on a single message. So you need to define for you, like, what's the part of your job that you love and what's the part of your job that you hate, and figure out if there's a way for AI to accelerate that part that you don't like as much, right? Um, I think that, if you're looking to play around with it, I think that, like, I actually don't think LinkedIn posts are a bad place to play around with, but I would say, like, um, make sure it's a blend of your thoughts and ideas, and AI is sort of an accelerant to that.
Could you give an example of how someone could start playing around with LinkedIn posts and AI and still adding their humanity in it?
Yeah, I think I've done this before where I will want to get more ideas for posts that I can write on a given topic. So I'll go to Jasper Chat because it's the tool I use. But you could do this in ChatGPT. You could do this in any number of tools that are out there, and brainstorm a little bit with AI to say, like, help me find new angles with which to talk about bias in AI. Right? It's a topic I care a lot about. Help me find new people that I should be learning from in this. And it just kind of takes a seed of an idea and fills it out for me. So then I have what was one post that was sort of 101 and entry level. And then I can expand that into like a full series of content that I want to write on. So I use it for ideation in that sense. Um, I think that uh, for, like, let's say your company is having a product
Yep.
launch and you want to promote that product that your team has worked so hard to build, but you don't want to do the same kind of like canned message as everybody else. You can sort of take a post from your product marketer and then use AI to personalize that, get it into your voice, change the approach to how you talk about that product launch.
I like the product lock example. I mean, you could even use it like in for expanding ideas as well, like you said, things of that nature. And when you're also using AI, there's also, you mentioned there's obviously different like content that you could put out there. Have you used it to analyze people's like voice in like a video, for example, and try to make that into written content? Have you experimented with those things?
Yeah, so we had an event back in February where we had just all these incredible speakers and we had these panels, and I gave a speech there as well. I put a lot of time into that talk, like an embarrassing amount of time. It was like my first time talking on the subject and really wanted it to be good. And then the event happened and then it was over. And I was like, it's like your wedding day. We were like, wait, we did all that and now
Come
it's
on.
done. And you get
Can we do
upset.
it again? Like,
Yeah, yeah. And so, so I used AI to, I took the audio from my talk to use AI to transcribe it. And then I used Jasper to turn that transcription into a Medium post. And then I turned that into a series of LinkedIn posts. And I just repurposed the heck out of
yeah.
it so that I could get more life out of that idea that I had worked so hard on.
I love that. And then what would you say that, like, how many pieces of content that are come out to? Like probably 10, 20, it sounds like. Sounds a good bit.
Yeah, I think I'd say 10 is a fair is kind of a fair assessment there. When you add up all the social posts and the blog posts that came out of it, I've kind of rewritten that script into new talks. So yeah, and like every time there's something a little bit different. So it's not just a repackaging; it's sort of like a reimagination, a variation on a concept. And it's that iteration that I think gets you to new ideas and new places. I've said this a bunch of times, and if my team is listening, they will roll their eyes. But I often think that, like, the biggest thing standing in the way of our best ideas is our ability to convey them well and at scale. And there was somebody in the chat who was talking about, copywriter, English not being their first language. They may have incredible ideas and and I'm not projecting here, this may not be the case for the copywriter, but you can imagine like a founder where English is not their first language, and they have an incredible idea for a pitch for a company, but they need help conveying that, right? And so it's, again, I think about it as this extender of your own natural brilliance, and something that can really increase your capacity.
I agree. It's an expander, not a constrictor. It's based on how you use it. Which again, the reason I asked how many posts is that you mentioned friction. It's massive friction. I don't know how many times I mean, probably done what, hundreds of podcast interviews, webinars. Like, you probably drop some really good nuggets in there. Sometimes like, yo, that was really good. But then you get the raw file and it's like an hour and you're like, I don't have time to go through this. And then it just dies, right? But AI it allows you to extract those nuggets, and you still were able to repurpose the work that you put into it. So I think that's a critical point for everybody listening in, which then will lead to this question we have here, which is, this is actually interesting. Do you think that the AI generated content are restricted by the LinkedIn algorithm in getting more visibility? There's a lot. There's actually a lot here to unpack, but what's your take on this?
Yeah, short answer is no. So, we got this question a lot when in the early days around Google, people were really concerned about getting penalized for using AI in their content. And Google has since come out very clearly and said, we don't care if you use AI. We care if the resulting post is junk content.
Yeah.
We care if, whether you hire 100, freelancers in a content farm, or you use AI and you just produce like high volume, low quality stuff, that's going to rank badly. Yep. But if you use AI and you blend it with your own insights and you do your own research and add that in and create something really good, there's no way in the world that we would penalize that. That's good content. I would take the same approach for LinkedIn. I think that LinkedIn's algorithms are driven by engagement, right? So if you put something out there that sounds robotic and cliche and shallow, it's not going to get a lot of engagement. If you put something out there that is unique and funny and compelling, and it's going to drive the engagement, and that's going to be what drives its showing. And you can do that. You can do either with AI.
Hopefully that answers your question. And yeah, the thing is that what Meghan's saying, and also what I've realized in creating my own content, is that it's just only going to expand and replicate what you're already doing. If obviously you put in the right inputs, it can analyze your style, it can analyze your tone, right, and help you get a foundation to get going. So that's like ultimately how I believe in that piece for sure. And we're still like in this content piece. So you're saying you repurpose it from AI perspective, you're doing all these other things. What's your take on this? Because there are people who probably want to see a content creator or someone who's creating content that they really like, and they want to emulate them, they want to do their posts like them. Would you use AI to like take what their style is and try to make it your own? Do you feel like that's a wrong decision? I've heard of people
sound like Steve.
Yeah. Like I've heard people are trying to think or do these things, and I want to hear. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I froze up.
No, you're good.
Bad time to freeze.
No, you're good. You're good. You were about to drop it, and then they were just like, nah, you can't do it, but you're here. You're here. We can hear you.
Everybody on yes. Hard pass. I think it's a bad idea. I think you should be cultivating your own voice. I think you can get into legal territory if you're emulating someone too closely, or especially when it comes to like music. I know it's fun to create a bunch of songs that sound like Jay-Z or Taylor Swift, but like that stuff is in really sketchy territory, I think. And I just don't think, like, let's create new things, right? I mean, let's develop your own voice through AI. I think that, there's always a risk in these new kind of transformative technologies that, it makes a lot of things easier. And so I think the question is, are you going to use that and reinvest that time into better content? or are you going to allow it to make you lazier,
Yeah.
right? And so I think we have to step up as content creators, as marketers, to use this in a way that doesn't just make us faster, doesn't just tear down barriers, but that makes us better. So long answer to I would not do that.
I'm getting people's pulse on this because we're like, well, I can go look at this person's long format, copy their tone, start writing like them, and I'm like, I don't know, that doesn't sound right. Like it doesn't feel good to me.
It's a hack. It makes you a hack. Like build your own empire, you know? People are smart too. Like they're gonna know what you're doing. And I don't think it adds anything.
I agree to that. So here's the question that I was talking about before we had gone on, and I want to get your take on this. So I was on a pin on Wednesday where it was AI, and mostly it was in sales. We're talking about content creation here, but I still think it plays into it because we were just talking about copywriting. So from your perspective, as being in the marketing role, obviously you're working with marketing teams or sales teams in some capacity. Do you see where AI is going because you're inside of this every single day? That there will be AI that will replace some sales reps? I'm not saying all because that's a little bit egregious, but do you see the AI replacing some sales reps, replacing marketers, and even content creators to a certain degree?
Yeah, I mean that I don't think it should. I think it's a mistake to do that. Not just because I think it's like, you know, it's not nice or it's ethically
Mhm.
wrong. I do think those things. I also just think it's a mistake. I think what it should do is replace some of the activities that those people were doing so that they can reinvest that time into something better at work, so that they can, you know, develop a stronger relationship with the prospect that they're selling to, so that they can do more research into the article that they're writing. Um, I think if you take the human out of the mix, then all transactions become very mechanical, and you lose all differentiation in that
Mhm.
world. So it's not just about like doing the right thing. I think it's like you will lose if if the if people I find myself using human a lot more in sentences these days. Yeah, I think you will lose your competitive edge if people are entirely out of the mix. So I just don't think it's smart marketing or smart sales leadership to do
If
that.
you so you're essentially what you're saying is the AI should be used for eliminating manual tasks, whatever that may be, and then maybe you're having the same amount of people and they're still selling, they're still doing marketing, creating, whatever that may be.
Yeah. And look, I do think that the job market's going to shift. I don't want to be too Pollyanna about this. Like, I think that there will be jobs that will grow in importance, and then there will be jobs that there won't be, such a high demand or number of them. And I think we have to navigate that shift as humans, as people. The world changes in very big ways every once in a while, and this is one of those times. And it's not always easy, and there are negative things that come out of that. Like, I want to be really
Yeah.
clear. I think my instruction, if I'm talking to other marketing leaders, if I'm talking to sales leaders, my instruction to them would be, this is not a shortcut to cutting your
Hmm.
team. It's not good enough to be that. No matter how good it gets, you need that human perspective. But yeah, I think like the world will change in terms of, just as when the internet came around, frankly, like
Yeah.
there weren't social media managers, there weren't, SEO
No.
experts, there weren't any of these things before the internet came around, and that whole field kind of, my whole career came about because of, you know, dial up and AOL, right?
Yep.
Like, uh, so I think over the next decade, actually, that's even too long of a time frame. I think over the next few years, like the job market is going to change significantly, and there'll be ups and downs in that. And I would just pay attention to the ways in which that's unfolding.
And I have a follow-up question to that. And for everybody in, we're about like 5 to 8 minutes left. So if you have any burning questions, please put in the chat. So you're saying it's going to change. I agree with that. I think everyone agrees with that. So you won't know exactly, but let's do a prediction here. What would be the most important job or new job that's going to come out of this that you think is going to be absolutely and critical important for people to gain the skills for?
My answer is going to be really boring. Um, but maybe interesting in that respect. I think the most important job to hire for in the next couple of years is an editor. Like, I think that for all the reasons we talked about before, I think, for the bias, for the inaccuracies, for the pull the people will have to just outsource their writing to AI and create kind of shallow content.
Mm,
I think having someone who is a steward at your company for high quality writing and creation is going to become really important. Someone who, and that editor needs to change their skill set, right? It's not just copy editing anymore. It's not just like grammar. It's truly like, is this the best piece of content we could put on the internet on this subject? And how do we push our, bionic writers
right.
to be better at this? So I think people with that kind of editorial perspective who can, in an age where content is commoditized, who can find the most interesting stories, who can use their editorial skills to sharpen them, those are going to become really important. I also think that, there's people who are really good at sort of like stitching together different tools to towards an outcome, right? Will also rise in this. This is a time where like technology is moving really, really fast. So people can stay on top of what AI can do and where the new frontiers are. That's a good spot to be in.
Editor, and would you say you would need both then? You would need like a video editor and a written editor as well, because I'm assuming the video AI piece will continue to get better. I mean, you can put there's like you probably seen an Opal. You can put a YouTube video in there and it creates 10 clips, right? You need to make sure someone like that the video actually is crisp and still makes sense. So I'm assuming when you say editor, it's not just the writing, it's also the video side.
It's stewards. It's people who are protecting the quality of the output, the quality of your brand, the who have the point of view on what's actually good and interesting. So yeah, I think across the fields, and I'm definitely talking more heavily on the marketing side. And I know we've got a sales audience here
Yep.
too. So, but on marketing, like, yeah, I would invest in journalists who understand what good angles and stories look like, and editors who can make sure that you're meeting the quality bar that you hold dear for your company. Those are really important. um, on I think on the sales side, I don't know if the roles are going to change that much, but I think that the how you spend your time will. And so the skills around you know, relationships and being able to, very quickly research and understand a buyer that you're selling into, those will rise because those are things that AI can't do as well.
As we wrap up here, and thank you so much for the great insights. What is the number one thing that you're the most excited about when it comes to AI, and what is the one thing that absolutely terrifies you? And your answer can't be like iRobot levels.
Yeah, no, I don't like. I think all the like extinction talk around AI is frankly, like, and I'm not the first person. There's some great thinkers who've written extensively about this. There's a woman named Meredith Broussard who I was quoting the other day. But this idea of like we're so focused on like AI as an extinction event that we're ignoring the very real, like more urgent, practical problems that AI produces, and it's a bit of like a magic show distraction. So I think that like the uh, I'll start with what I worry about, and then I'll go into we'll end on the high note. I think what I worry about is that we will outsource too much of our agency and decision making and learning to AI. I really like AI as a complement and a tool to humans. That's why I chose this job, where I think that AI can accelerate, great writing and can accelerate good ideas. I get nervous when frankly, like AI in search makes me a little bit nervous because it's then controlling the flow of information and how I learn about subject
Sure.
matters. I want more traceable control in there. I understand that that's happening, and I think that Google and Microsoft have been very thoughtful about how they're doing that. But because AI today is a bit of a black box in how it delivers its outputs, um, I worry about us being too trusting of what those outputs are, right? For all the reasons we said before, for accuracy, for avoiding bias, for reinforcing stereotypes, things like that. That's my big
Yeah.
worry. I think the worst extrapolation of that is like, allowing AI to tell you who should get a loan or not based on data.
Yeah.
Allowing AI to make like really serious health decisions absent of a medical staff that can dig in and fact check that answer,
Yeah.
right? So and that's not a problem with the technology, that's a problem with us and how we use it and how lazy we are
Yeah.
around its use, right? So I think about that a lot. Misinformation spread, all of that. On the positive side, I think that, look, anytime that you have a transformative piece of technology like this that comes about in a rush, the subsequent years are just full of productivity and creation and new companies and new creative works. And so I'm excited to be here for this time when we're kind of out of the iterative stage and we're in the stage of the world wide open, right? And there's it feels like there's almost nothing that can kind of hinder our own capacity to create great things right
Yeah.
now. And I think there's some incredible, just some incredible things that are going to spring out of that,
I
right?
agree.
The best parallel I have is the internet. When that first happened, we got Wikipedia, we got we became, social media allowed us to sort of bear witness to really important events around the world. And all of that will come with this too. Mixed in there, there's going to be some risk and some negative things that we have to watch out for and that we have a responsibility to call out when we see them. That makes
Makes
sense?
complete sense. I think what you're saying at the end of the day is making sure that you're not using AI as a complete replacement of the skills and the craft that you've developed. So, for example, the doctor's a good example. You got your whole doctor's degree in this, and now you're going to give it to an AI that you just process because you don't want to do that part. When it's like we need that fact checking because you this is what you went to school for, right? This is what you did, right? At the same time, the great part of it is because I said this about a couple weeks ago when I was on a panel. I was saying that AI is more exciting and promising than it is scary, right? I don't think Terminator is going to come out the ground in 3 years and just come out and
Yeah.
they take everyone out. I don't think that's going to happen. But to your point, what I agree with and what I believe I'm hearing is because AI will be able to take care of more manual tasks that we have to do on a day-to-day basis, it allows for us to operate in what we do best, which is our creative space, more of our thinking to do more, right, and come up with better ideas. The less manual tasks that we have, the more that we can do that, which will lead to the advancement of everything that we're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I I actually like don't even want to assign a value of like it's good or it's bad. It is a piece of
Mhm.
technology. Whether it creates harm or whether it creates enormous potential, entirely in our
Right.
hands, right?
Right.
Um, and I think that I think the question is really like, how do we feel about humanity right now? Like, how do
Yeah,
we feel
because the
about
inverse
like our
question.
capacity to bend that arc in the right way? And can we push each other to do that? And I think if we can, this can be an incredible time of opening, right, for us, of solving really long-term entrenched problems. I think that if we give way to sort of our worser tendencies, we're going to create at best a bunch of drivel on the internet, at worst serious harm um, to our society and to people within it. And so we really I cannot stress this enough. I got into this work because I feel like I have a responsibility to try to, and this is grandiose, but like a responsibility to try to steer what I can. And I think that every single person, whether you're in the AI field or not right now, needs to be thoughtful about this tidal wave of change that is coming and the individual ways that you're going to use it bend the arc in a way that's positive.
I think that's a excellent statement. A great way to end this conversation. Meghan, thanks so much for taking time on a Friday and talking with us. Everyone in the audience, hopefully you enjoyed the information. You got your questions answered. We will be back with another Muffins with Morgan, so stay tuned. And I hope you'll have a great rest of your day.
Loved it. Thank you so much.